Hi, and thank you for joining us in today's session. My name is Rachel Pickens, and I'm excited to show you the new OnCost estimating system and OnPoint reporting system available in the current version of Construction Suite. Today's goal is to really show you how to make best use of the estimating system, to know where to find the different resources we have for you, how we can set up our own templates, and prepare those estimates for perhaps integrating with QuickBooks or by creating really nice, clean-looking reports. So a lot of information that I'd like to show you today. So we'll go ahead and get started. Today, again, we're going to be looking at the main screen of Construction Suite is going to show you all of the most recent information. What I really want to focus our attention on today is going to be two different areas. First, you've got the recent projects, which is going to be the quickest way for you to find the recent projects that you've been working in. And also, you've got your financial information, which is going to show you the financial information coming from the estimates that you have saved in Construction Suite. The base estimate value in red is going to represent the original contract sum, whereas the estimated value shown in green is going to represent all accepted change orders. Now keep in mind that change order management is available for our Construction Suite Premier and Catalyst versions and higher. In blue, you're going to be able to find all of the actual costs associated with the projects. Now, actual costs can either be entered manually, we'll show you how to do that today, or you can actually import those from QuickBooks using the QuickBooks integration. Actual costs are going to represent all bills, checks, credit card transactions, and paychecks that you have in QuickBooks. The committed costs and invoice amounts, however, are shown in yellow and orange, respectively. The committed costs shown in yellow are going to represent all purchase orders that you have in QuickBooks, whereas the invoice amounts in orange represent all invoices you have to the client. Now the actual costs, or the committed costs and invoice amounts, are going to be only integrated from QuickBooks, and we'll take a look at that in the QuickBooks integration session, which is held every other Wednesday. Lastly, before we go on to creating a new project and setting up our estimate, I want to show you the items database, which is where you're going to be able to find all of the pricing information that you have. We include pricing information from RS Means in the form of their various cost books. The cost book that you receive is going to depend on the version of the software that you have, whether it's a residential or a commercial package. You can select the cost book that you'd like to use by selecting this link, choosing the residential cost data, for example. You can download, or you'll have different cost books available, again, depending on your version. You can also create your own custom cost book. So if you have pricing or a supplier that you've been working with who submits their own pricing, you can actually create your cost book from that pricing. We have some import options that are available that you're able to use, so you can find out more information by contacting one of our product specialists, or you can create one by hand manually. This information that you have in the cost book can be linked to the estimate. So I'm going to go ahead and actually use the Salil Custom. Cost book will say that this is one of our vendors. You can see that the cost book is very blank, so we can begin creating our cost book by setting up the structure on the left-hand side, so entering categories and subcategories to help us organize this data. So for example, I can choose a category name, add a subcategory to help me better organize this information. And this could be whatever you prefer. So you don't necessarily have to use my structure. And then once you have that, you can actually begin to add items. So the items are going to be what you'd insert into your Construction Suite estimate. You can enter multiple items or multiple quotes per item. So for example, we're going to call this a 2x4 by 8. Enter a description if you'd like. That's going to come through to your estimate. Include any additional notes, and then provide that unit. Then you'll select to add a quote, where you can set up the classification. You can also include the vendor information where you found that quote, so you can come back and edit it or check on those quotes periodically. Set your expiration date. That way the software will automatically remind you that the quotes are expiring. Enter in your price. Again, you can include any additional notes, set it as the default. So now we've got that one quote entered in for this 2x4 by 8. Again, you can enter additional quotes. We can actually enter in quotes for labor as well. So you'll notice that with the RS Means cost books, they actually have labor quotes provided as well. So you can kind of estimate how much that would cost for the labor. So again, all of your items information is can be referenced or input into this database so that you can reference those on your estimate. We'll go ahead now and take a look at creating a new estimate. So I'm going to hop over to my Today screen, my summary page, and we're going to begin by creating a new project. In the project, we're going to want to include a name and a project type, helping us organize and easily find these projects. For this example, we're going to say that we're entering or we're creating a new home or building a new home on Lot 15 of the Baldwin Park subdivision. You can enter a project type, which is going to do 3 different things. First, it's going to allow you to easily filter your projects list. Over time, as you incorporate or add more projects, the list can be pretty overwhelming, so adding filtering options or making sure that you're classifying them in some way can really help things stay organized. You can also link these, or for this information is also going to be linked to your workflows and your dimensions. Now, if I were to click on details, for example, it's going to show me the workflow that is assigned to the single-family residential project type. This is going to provide a list of steps that are necessary in order to complete this project. So just giving me a good frame of reference as to what I need to complete for this project to finish. The third option is going to be with your dimensions set. So because I had chosen single family residential, it's given me this list of dimension values, main floor, second and third floor, so on, where I can enter square footage. Now, keep in mind that you can use this in a variety of ways. You could enter the number of windows. You could use these for different variables as well. So you get pretty creative with how you set up these dimensions. But one of those ways is to certainly just enter square footage. This information can be linked to your estimate so that you can quickly and easily populate quantities. Once you have that information provided, we'll choose our client. So I'm going to go ahead and insert that information. We'll say we're using the client address. We could, of course, enter that address ourselves. You can enter some additional details like your group or status. Provide details about the project, which are going to come through to your proposal document. And then lastly, you can enter those quantities like we mentioned for our home. So for example, we'll go ahead and enter a few of these square footage values. And so on. So once you're finished with that information, go ahead and select to finish, and that'll allow you to see the project overview page in your construction suite system. So now we're looking at our project details, which is where we can come back and edit the information or quickly get the project information. We can view all of our estimating and scheduling values. So notice that this information right now just says create estimate. Once we create the estimate, it's going to be showing those numbers. We'll also be able to see all change orders, application for payments, if those pertain to this estimate. Let's go ahead and get started by creating the new estimate, where we'll have the new wizard. We can select either one of our predefined template options, or we can start from scratch with a blank estimate. The key to Construction Suite is setting up templates. Those will allow you to find a process that works well, enter all the items one time, so that all you have to do from job to job is create and open up that template, make some minor modifications, and produce that estimate. So that's really going to be the key to setting up an effective system in Construction Suite. When we select that template, we're going to be able to choose from the template that we'd like to use. So you can set up several different templates. For example, in this scenario, I'm going to create the residential sample template, which has some information and details for us to enter. As I click Next, I want to make sure my project information is correct, and then enter a sales tax if it applies. Once we have that estimate open, it's going to show you the very first page of your estimate is what we call the project totals page, or our summary. So that's going to show us the breakdown of your construction suite estimate. On the left-hand side, you've got your categories like planning and foundation, your subcategories such as design services and permits and so on. Each category has its own category sheet. So if I were to click on foundation, for example, it's going to take me to the actual foundation page. Notice at the bottom that I'm on my own tab. This is where I can see the third level of detail, which is what we call the items. For example, you see footers materials is set to the detailed method, so I can see the individual items that make up this footers materials section. I can also enter a lump sum method, like footers labor, which allows me to enter a single quantity and cost for that subcategory rather than breaking it down into more detail. So you have the flexibility to do either one. You'll notice that all throughout this estimate, you're going to see these kind of light gray links, add subcategory, add category, or add item, and that'll allow you to add or add to this estimate. So for example, if I wanted to enter a new subcategory, I can select that link to insert a new subcategory between the two that were already existing. You can also delete information by right-clicking and choosing to delete the row. If you delete a subcategory, it's going to delete the corresponding items as well. So it's going to remove everything that's belonging to that category or subcategory. You can also change the order. So if you wanted to move things up or down, you certainly could do that as well. And all of this is really just to show you that these estimates are very customizable. So you can really set these up in a manner that's going to work best for you. So you can take one of our templates that we provide, use that to generate your estimate, or you can completely tweak it or start from scratch to create your own estimate template. So a lot of flexibility as to how to set that up. We navigate back to the project totals page. We have at the very bottom of the estimate our company overhead and margin sheet, which is going to allow us to enter a percentage or a fixed dollar value that will add to our project subtotal to account for our profit. If I were to click on one of those links, for example, it's going to take me to that specific page. So under company overhead, again, I can insert a percentage, or I can enter a specific dollar value. So for example, I could enter 1,500 instead of 15%, something along those lines. So these numbers are automatically going to add to your project subtotals. Again, back, if I were to click on this drop-down menu, I can actually quickly navigate back to my project totals page, which is where I can see that new project total representing the 417, which includes that 51,000 for my company overhead and margin. Now notice on the right-hand side, this is going to be one of the newest additions to Construction Suites estimating, is the estimate summary, which allows you to quickly see the breakdown of your costs. This breakdown that you see, this estimated cost, is going to be the same breakdown that we're going to see back in our estimate once we save this. So that's going to be just either way that you can see that information. You could also break down your cost by classification. In order to set the classification, you can access that feature by just right-clicking on any one of your column headers and choosing to show or hide your columns. You'll notice that we have a lot of different columns that you can add to this estimate, so you can really change the look and what's showing depending on what's important to you. So we can check, for example, the classification column, and now we can see the breakdown between our labor, materials, subcontractor, equipment, or other classification types. So again, we can see that breakdown so we can quickly see what we're spending on material or labor. Cost by type allow you to see the differences between those items marked as estimates or those that are set to be options or allowances. Now let's go back, for example, to our estimate. We'll go ahead and take a look at our plumbing systems, for example, and notice that we have plumbing fixtures. Perhaps instead of entering in this information, we actually want to set this as an allowance. I'm going to change this from a detailed to from a lump sum to detailed information. So notice that we have all of these different fixtures that our client could add. Rather than keeping this as an estimate, I could actually set this to be an allowance that allows them to enter in, or basically allows me to generate a report that would allow me to send that to the client so they could decide, what information they'll need to collect for those allowances. You could also change this to an option. An option is going to remove the project price. So for example, when I switch something to an option, it's going to remove the subtotal of that option category from my project total. For example, if I were to change this from option to estimate, notice that $4,000 is going to be added to my project subtotal. So you can kind of see that those are removed temporarily from this estimate. Again, with these options and allowances, you can generate various reports. So we'll go ahead and create an options report for these plumbing fixtures. If we go to reports, under your customer reports, you've got both your allowances and your options report. So I'll go ahead and select the last one, which is going to compile a list of all items in this estimate that are set to that classification of option. This is going to produce the report in OnPoint, which is our document and reporting tool. So notice that we have a few different options that we can select as far as which columns are going to display. If we want our sales tax and line item markup to be included in our estimates cost, we can do that if those apply. We can also include items with no estimated value. So for example, in this case, I don't have any costs associated with those fixtures, so I'm going to check that option. And then select OK to generate that document. Once I've generated the document, notice that in blue at the very top, we have all of the project information, client information, and my company information automatically populated. These are what we call auto-populating fields or auto-doc fields. On your templates in Construction Suite, they're going to be very, very generic. For example, they're going to say things like project name, project fax number, or project telephone or something like that. So all of those are very generic, but when you create them and save them to a project, then they quickly update with your project information and your client information so that you don't have to constantly enter that information. So just a small time saver that can really add up to be a good benefit. Now as we continue to scroll down, it's going to show us all the different options. Again, it's showing us all of these different columns, although you can choose which columns are shown. So it's going to list out all of those items so that my clients can come back and enter the details that they want. We'll go ahead and save this document. So notice that it's automatically going to ask us to save it to the Lot 15 Baldwin Park project, providing a quick file name. Now there are several different ways to share this information from Construction Suite. You can either do so by actually sending it directly as an attachment. So we could go to Tools, Email as Attachment, which allows us to send this directly from Construction Suite. It will attach that as a PDF document and allow you to enter a quick body. Keep in mind that if you do want to keep a record of this, you'll want to make sure to check the bottom left-hand checkbox to send a copy of this to you as well. The other way to share this information is using our really neat project collaboration site called Construction Online. So if I were to go to Construction Suites, I could actually save this document directly to Construction Online, which would convert that to a PDF, so that anyone who has access to my Construction Online account would be able to log in and view the details, provided that I've shared them with that information. So Construction Online is a great way for you to upload important documents and project information so that anyone on your project team, whether it's your clients, your subcontractors, your team members, architects, designers, whoever it would be, so that they can access all of that important project information. So again, Construction Online is going to be covered in heavy detail on our sessions on Fridays. So if that's something that you're interested, please make sure to check it out or view one of our recorded webinars on our YouTube page. We'll go ahead and close this document. So again, we've created those options or set that subcategory as the options. If we're looking back at this estimate summary on the right-hand side, we can also view all of our category costs. So it just gives us a quick breakdown of our categories. And then lastly, we can see any change orders that we have. In this instance, they're blank. So we'll go ahead and kind of skip past that for just a moment. go ahead and turn on some additional columns to show you some of the neat tools. We have a description column, which I see a lot of our clients use. Description columns allow you to enter an additional detail about the item. So perhaps you want to keep it pretty simple in your template, naming things with just one or two words. That allows you to keep a really nice, consistent template. The description, though, allows you to include more detail. So if you wanted to describe what's going to be done, or what the item is going to do, or how it's going to be used, then the description is a great place to do that. You can also enter in notes. So, for example, if you were to click on the left column, it's going to open up the item information window, which allows you to enter general notes, bid notes, or field notes. So basically 3 different areas for you to classify or enter additional details about the items. You can actually timestamp these. So if you wanted to record or make sure you are updating when information was changed or edited, you're able to actually timestamp those to keep track of that information as well. Some additional columns that are going to be very helpful are going to be our resources column, which allow you to actually associate or assign resources. Now, resources in Construction Suite are going to be our contacts. These could be your subcontractors or suppliers, vendors, whoever it would be, who's responsible for this task. So it could be, in the case of this water heater subcategory, we could click on our resource tab and assign a specific supplier. For example, if it's Ajax Supply, we'll go ahead and assign them to this subcategory. It's going to ask if I want to assign all items in the subcategory to Ajax Supply. One of the other tools is going to allow you to see if you have any expired insurance. So for your subcontractors, this can be certainly helpful, making sure that you have valid insurance for them on file when you assign them to a project. So that's going to allow you to check that information. If you don't mind, you can go ahead and click yes and assign them anyways. Notice that once I do so, we now see Ajax Supply listed as the resource for all items in this subcategory. Now you can either assign items this way, or you could also, in your vendor reports, create a few different documents. For example, you could generate a request for quote, which allows you to collect the estimate information and send that out to multiple vendors or subcontractors asking for pricing for those given areas. We'll be able to choose the categories that we'd like to include in that RFQ. So for example, if I want to only include my framing, I can certainly do that. You can choose which columns are going to show, so if you want your quantities, costs, and so on. You can filter by classification, so if I just want to create an RFQ for my labor, I can certainly just go ahead and filter that. Include items that have no estimated value or zero quantity, so a few different options to consider. And then you'll want to create requests for quotes for the following vendors. So basically you're going to choose the vendors that you want to send these quotes out, and that's going to create a separate report, a separate RFQ for each of those. Now something to point out here is that we have for each of your contacts this grouped feature. When you add a new contact, like we had done earlier, we were able to set a contact group. So again, you can add to this contact group. For example, you can create a framing contact group, which allows you to quickly find all of the framers rather than having to search through these one at a time. So you can select all of the people in your framing category to send this out to. So just keep that in mind. For the time being, I'm just going to create the one for Bishop & Brothers Framing and click OK. Again, that will create our OnPoint document. So you'll notice that it's included this bid request, again, incorporating all the project details. Below that, it's going to show me all of the items or categories in the framing category that were classified to labor. So again, I chose to filter this by labor only. So now I've got the one just for framing labor. Then I can send this out again either via email, upload it to Construction Online. Some other nice benefits of being able to assign the resources is that you can create materials lists or purchase orders. Again, that's going to summarize the information coming from the estimate, allow you to filter by the resource, so you can create a materials list for just Ajax supply or a purchase order document, which is going to allow you to send those to those suppliers or vendors as well. We move along, let's go ahead and go to my framing category now. Now remember earlier when we had first created the project, we had entered in those quantities in what we call dimensions. So now I'm going to turn on that column. So let's actually go ahead and turn on my quantity column as well, cost in units. So now that I have that information displayed, where I can see my quantity, my cost, my units, and then my total price. Now, this dimension column allows me to go through, for example, with floor system materials, perhaps the number of materials I need are going to be dependent on that square footage. Again, I don't have to necessarily keep with square footage. I could keep with linear feet or whatever else. But notice that I can now select a dimension. Remember, I had entered these earlier, so if I click Edit, I can see the dimensions that I had entered, or the values that I had entered for each of these dimensions. So for example, if I wanted to get the number of materials for my floor system based on the total finished area square footage, I can assign that dimension to this estimate, which is going to populate the quantity. So now if I go ahead and say yes to apply this to all items in the subcategory, my quantities for this, this information is going to be that 5050, or that 5,050 square feet. So that'll quickly populate all that information. Now again, you don't have to use square footage. This is kind of a large example. I don't think it would necessarily cost that much. But it gives you the flexibility to be able to basically associate these dimension values with your estimate. So all you have to do is update the square footage in one location and refresh your estimate so that it updates your pricing accordingly. So again, that's going to be a nice way for you to tie that information all together. Now that we have these dimensions entered, we've gone through some of the different things that you can enter in your estimates. I want to show you how we can generate our proposal package for our client. Again, on the Reports tab, I'm going to select my proposal wizard. In OnPoint, the proposal wizard is going to give you two different proposal templates. You have a residential or a commercial template. We'll go ahead and stick with our residentials. You want to make sure that your contact and project details are entered correctly. If you have your own company logo, you can check that box to include it. Notice that you have the option to actually edit this letterhead template from here. So for our sample information, we include the company Eagle Rock Construction, which you're about to see in a moment. But again, you can just click this link directly. It'll allow you to actually change that letterhead for your system. Once you click Next, you can choose the different layout options that you'd like to incorporate on your proposal. The option 1 is going to be a standard list format, so it's going to list out all the different categories and subcategories and potentially items and allow you to see the costs broken down for each of those. Option 2 and option 3 are going to provide some different layout options as far as how the information is provided, so you can kind of see a quick description of each of those. Once you select your template, you'll want to either include or not include your scope of work and special conditions. These are blank just because I had not entered this information when I first created the project. You can, however, once you enter this information in the project, it'll automatically populate here. Next, you can include your base price information. If you wanted to list out the dimensions that you're including or the different values that you found, you can also include those in your proposal. And then lastly, you're going to choose to include your project totals report, which is going to include the breakdown of your estimate. So you can include your company overhead and margin either listed separately as separate line items, or you could prorate those into different categories. So you could take out or take the value for company overhead and margin and split it evenly among your categories. If you wanted to include the notes, you can choose which types of notes to include. So for example, I'll just include my general notes. You could also print the project totals as a table. So rather than actually including that as a list option, it'll include a really nice table format. You can include the item level detail, items marked as options, for example. and then click Next to include some optional reference lists, and then Finish to produce that document. So once this document has been created, notice that it's showing that logo that I had entered, the company details, again coming from those auto-populating fields. Below that we can see all of the project details, the dimensions as they've been entered, and the base price. And then below that you'll see your project totals breakdown, which is going to show you by category and subcategory, or item if you include that, all of the different, the breakdown from your estimate in a really nice, clean, easy to read format. Notice it'll also include those notes should you choose to include those. Now at the very bottom of your estimate, of your proposal, you've got your company overhead and margin listed as well as your grand total. Again, you can prorate this company overhead and margin so that you don't include that in the project list separately. And then you have the location where your clients can sign. So it's going to present that really nice, clean proposal package. You don't have to re-enter all this information or type it all by hand. It's done automatically. So just a really nice time-saving tool. It also looks very professional, allowing you to create a really nice, clean proposal for your clients. Again, you can save it, send it out via email, or upload to Construction Online in order to share that with those with your client. Once you have that proposal out, let's just say that you're ready to submit the contract. So if we're back in Construction Suite, we can go to our Contracts and Documents. In this location is where we're going to find the very many contracts that we include as a part of your Construction Suite package. You'll notice, for example, that you can follow the structure to find the contracts that you might need. Choose the contract that you'd like to use and double-click to open it and save it to your project. Go ahead and select your contact and project information. Again, you can insert your logo and hit OK, and that'll update your contract to automatically have those details. So notice that you can include this contract. We include several different contracts that you can review. Of course, please make sure to read through them. You'll notice many different locations in blue are going to have those. Many of the different places in blue are going to be where we want you to make sure you edit the contract. So those are all very generic. You want to go through and read through this, edit those contracts. You can create your own contract or copy this and save it as a template as well. So keep in mind that's all available to you. So at this point, let's just go ahead and say that the project, we've submitted the proposal, our clients sign off on the proposal, they've signed the contract, we've begun work, and we're noticing that we're running into our first change request for our from our clients. So to do so, we can actually manage those change orders effectively in Construction Suite. For example, if I were to go to my exterior windows and doors, let's just say that the change order has been requested to replace the windows with a different type of window. So we're going to have to account for the additional material amount as well as the additional labor. I'm going to create a change order by changing the type from estimate to change order, which is going to prompt me with this new change order wizard. I can create a new change order, or if I already have one created, I could actually tie this existing selection to a change order that's already been created. I want to provide a name. Enter description. Whatever that might be, all this information is going to be included on your proposal or on your contract document that you create. I always leave the status as pending until my client actually accepts. So just leave the status as pending and select next. You'll be able to decide or determine the location. So I'm going to leave it in this existing exterior windows and doors category. And then lastly, you can create a new subcategory that has the same name. So now there are going to be two Windows subcategories. The first one is the original, showing me that 12,420. The second one that's represented in that yellow is going to be the change order. I can change this from detailed to lump sum if I'd like, or I can include specific dollar values. Again, we can account for the material and the labor. And then notice that we can go through and enter the costs for this change. So now that we've got that information entered, keep in mind that the change orders do not include the company overhead and margin. So remember earlier we had entered that 12% or that $15,000, $1,500 on top of our project subtotal. That does not factor into your change orders. So in order to take that, or in order to add that markup, you can simply turn on the line item markup column. So you just select that line item markup column, click OK. And now to the right, you're going to be able to enter a specific percentage. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and add the markup to all items in the subcategory, enter a 20% markup on my change orders, and that'll automatically update my cost for the change order to that $36.24. Now that I've created this change order, I can produce a change order document, which is going to include a contract or a proposal document for my client to review and sign. So I have the proper documentation that the change order had been approved. First things first, we'll go ahead and choose that change order. Notice it'll automatically include the description and what that change order includes. You have the option to create the proposal or the contract. So I'll create the contract, which allows you to see the original contract price and the new contract price according to this change order. You can also include this change order listed in a table if you wanted to give them exactly what that is going to include. So for example, in this case, notice that we now have all the details for the project showing the name of the change order and the description that we had entered. I've chosen to include this table. Again, you don't have to. Let's just say, for example, that I wanted to remove some of these columns. I could actually highlight the columns that I want to remove, right-click, and delete the columns. So I can just show the columns that I want. If I wanted to expand that, I could right-click and choose Auto Fit to Window, which would then stretch it back out to fit the whole page. So again, you can kind of tweak that if you'd like to as well. Below that, you're going to see the contract sum, which is going to show you the original contract amount of that $88,000. It's going to show you the change order amounts for any change orders previous to this one, the new change order total, and the new total of the contract should they accept the change order. You can also enter the number of days and have them sign it. So again, it's going to keep on record that this change was requested and approved. Once your client accepts the change order, you're going to be able to change the status from pending to accepted, which is going to ask you to export this change order to QuickBooks. In this case, we're not going to do that since we're not looking at the integration today. But keep in mind that you can do that, and again, that will be covered in the sessions on Wednesday. But once you accept that change order, it's now going to add to your project total, showing you the new $892,000. So again, you can create change orders in that way. You could also click on Estimating and view all of the change orders, which is going to show you a summary of all of the accepted, pending, or rejected change orders and their values. So lastly, I want to go ahead and show you how to start entering in your actual items for your estimate. So if you don't integrate with QuickBooks, then we can actually enter our actual costs, what we're actually paying on the job, in this construction suite estimate. So to do so, I'm going to turn on my actual column. I'm going to hide some columns to save some space here. And I'm going to scroll down to my total, actual, and variance columns and then choose all of those. So for example, now we've got our actuals entered. So if I go to my framing page, for example, hide this one. So back on my framing page, I can start to enter the totals of what I've been paying. So for example, let's just say that this was completed, or maybe it's 50% complete. I could actually enter in the actual amount, so I could actually go through and enter half of this, or the full $27,980. It's going to calculate the variance for me. So notice in this case there's no variance, but I could enter, perhaps it took a little over that. Then I can enter that $30,000 instead, and it's going to automatically calculate my variance, letting me know that I've actually spent more than I had originally planned. On the other way around, it's going to show you if you spent less, so you can see kind of where you stand on all of those. And so on. So notice that you can start entering this information in the actual column, and it's automatically going to calculate that variance. Again, we can generate a report that's going to summarize all of this information. So if you navigate to the Reports tab in your project management, you've got a few different report options. For example, your over budget report is going to show all of the items that you have gone over your budget. So pretty self-explanatory. Your estimate versus actual report is going to show all of the items that you've estimated costs for versus what you've actually spent. So that's going to include basically everything, whereas the remaining balance report is just going to show you the items that have a remaining balance left. So for example, it would just show you the first line, this 2 by 10 by 8, with that remaining balance of $79.75. So you can kind of see if you have some wiggle room to apply in different areas. The great thing about this, though, is that you're able to see right then and there exactly where you stand for the project. Again, the integration with QuickBooks is a really nice tool, so please make sure to take a look at that. That's some place that can really help you keep everything integrated well with your accounting system and make sure that you're up to date as far as all of your job costs are concerned. We'll go ahead, though, and create the estimate versus actual report. I actually selected the wrong report, so we'll go ahead and close this in a moment. Or we'll just go ahead and generate the entire thing. So we're going to do that remaining balance report. Again, you can choose the columns that are going to display, whether you want items with no estimated values or not. And that will prepare that document in OnPoint. Now, all throughout this system, you have the ability, for each of these reports, you have the ability to edit the template. So, for example, if there's information that's not on the template that you want to add, you can basically update your template in OnPoint so that you make the change in one place at one time, and it will automatically update everywhere else. So keep in mind that whenever you see an edit template link, it'll allow you to actually edit the specific template, but I'll show you in just a moment where you can find that otherwise. So for example, in this case, it's going to show you all of those that have a remaining balance, so we can see all of the items that we haven't inserted an actual for with their remaining balance, or the ones that have a partial actual entered, like we had seen for this framing category. If we were to navigate now back to the construction suite system, Now that we're in the contracts and docs, notice that you have the report template section, which is where you can also find those templates. So in this scenario, if you wanted to change or edit one of the templates that you have, keep in mind that you will need to be an administrator of the construction suite system. But then if that's the case, then you'll be able to come through and actually change those. So for example, for that remaining balance report, we can come to the remaining balance report, click on that to edit the template, make any of the changes we want. So we can insert those auto doc fields, for example. So this remaining balance report is pretty blank. It's actually the template or the table is actually provided whenever you generate the report. So right now it looks very blank. But perhaps I wanted to insert more details for my remaining balance report, or perhaps I wanted to insert generic notes. I could actually make all of the changes to this report template, save that, and it'll save so that I can use that from then on out. Now I want to show you how we can update these auto-populating templates or auto-populating fields as well. Notice that this one has very generic information, company's full address, license number, and phone number. Perhaps I wanted to provide some additional details though about the project, so I could actually I'm going to insert a new row, so I'm just going to right-click, insert a row below, and include some more information about the project. So to do so, you can go to Tools. You've got your contact fields, project fields, and company fields as those auto-populating fields. So for example, for the project, I could select General Info, include the project number, for example, if I wanted to insert that information. But you'll notice there's a lot of details that you can add and adjust in this information. So you can insert the project base estimate, for example, or the project actual cost if you wanted to see the total actual cost somewhere. You could also insert the date. So for example, if I wanted to insert a letterhead, I could just double click in, a header. I could just double click in this top portion and insert a header either for my first page or all pages. For example, if I wanted all pages and I wanted to include the number, I could insert a header which would include perhaps the project name. So if I wanted to include the project name, and then I could include the project date or the today's date by going to Insert, Date and Time, or I could just do the Date field and Year field. That's going to be found in your Insert tab over to the right. You could also insert, so let's say once I do that, I want to go through and actually insert the page number. I could insert that as well, choose my numbering format, and it's going to allow me to keep track of all of the pages. You could also insert footers, so you have all that information inserted as well. And you can access those by double-clicking, again, choosing the type of footer, going to center this footer. And then back on my Insert tab, I'm going to insert the page number, so it'll automatically keep track of the number of pages. So now once I save these changes, if I were to come back to my proposal document or my estimate and generate that report, it's going to allow me to see all of those changes, including the including the number of pages or the additional auto-populating fields that I've adjusted. So now we'll make those adjustments, choose what we want to include. And then it'll produce that document. So notice that we've now got the new changes to our header. For example, we've got that Lot 15 Baldwin Park showing. I need to get rid of that, that highlight. And then we could also go through and actually see the new project number that we incorporated, as well as the number of pages at the bottom. So again, you can update those templates, view all of those details, and make changes as well. So just another way for you to make best use of the construction suite system. So now we've gone through all those different changes. Let's go back to my project and take a look at how the project has changed. We go back to Lot 15 Baldwin Park. We're going to see the related contacts, Brian Evans in this case, and as well as Ajax Supply have been added. We can now see our estimate breakdown, including the number of change orders that we have pending, accepted, or rejected. In the bottom right-hand corner, we can see all files that we've created as well, so we can quickly reference the files that we have. And then lastly, on our Today screen, we'll be able to see our project, Lot 15 Baldwin Park, shown at the bottom with our estimated values, our actual costs, and our base estimates. So that's going to show you how to create your estimate in Construction Suite, how we can edit that information. I want to go ahead and open the floor to any questions at this point. Let's see, it looks like we've actually got a question coming in. We had talked, the question's asking about the items database. We had talked about creating your own cost book and inserting that, but we actually didn't even show you how to incorporate that into your estimate. So let me go ahead and show you how to do that. For example, let's just say for this floor system materials, we want to add the item from our cost book. So we would click on the Add Item link that you can find in your cost book, and you're going to choose to insert the item from the database rather than adding it manually. When you insert the item from the database, you're going to be able to select the cost book that you want to pull from, find the location of that item. You can also search for it. And then once you have it, you can expand the item to make sure you've got the right quote in case you have multiple quotes, and select the Insert into Estimate button. Enter your quantity and hit OK. Once you do so, notice that it's going to insert the item with the quantity to give you that new price. Notice that all items coming from your cost books are going to be inserted in blue, so it's going to give you a quick, easy way to see all of the items that we've inserted from the database rather than having to insert those manually. So great question. Definitely glad that you mentioned that so we can cover it again. Again, inserting the items from the cost books, you would just click the Add Item link and choose the items from the cost book that you'd like to use. So great question. I want to go ahead and pass along my contact information for those of you who have additional questions. As you begin to work in Construction Suite, please let us know as you have questions. You can reach me personally. My name is Rachel Pickens. I can be reached at 800-700-8321, and my extension is 290. You could also email me at rpickens@uda1.com. So feel free to stay in touch with any additional questions. Any one of our product specialists would be happy to assist. So hopefully you'll stay in touch. Please feel free to check out the other webinars that we have available the remainder of the week. Again, that's Monday through Fridays, or every other week, Monday through Friday, we have webinars available on various topics. We also have all of these recorded and can be found at our YouTube page by searching for us at UDA Technologies. I hope you all have a great day. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully we'll hear from you very soon. Bye-bye.